No, it says mute, share screen, um, hang up.
No, no, no.
Oh yeah, up top right, top
We're
right. There's comments. Yeah, I see it.
okay.
Okay,
Okay, they'll be popping up. Yeah, we're cool.
cool. Jesus, sorry for
Yeah.
that.
No, we're good. This is
It's our
this
usual MO.
it's par for the course with Todd and Steven.
It
You
really
know,
is.
we can't have a meeting without having the presence of many beings, including the Anunnaki, Pleiadians, alphabet companies, and alphabet soup.
Exactly.
I mean, we've never done a show where there hasn't been an issue ever.
Right? I think that's true.
I think last time you kept popping off and coming back on. That's
Jesus
right, and it
Christ.
was a powerful like 45 or 50 minutes too. We were just like zipping through. Zzz.
Yeah, I know. That was intense. We had a good dynamic. I like that one.
We always have a good time. We always have a good time.
It's true, we do. The buzz.
Yeah, I've got some stuff I wanted to ask you about.
It's always fun.
While we're waiting, we got 24 people. 24
Oh,
people.
there's some comments popping up. What the fuck are you talking about? What?
That's Adrian Binkley. He comes on. He comes on now and then, and makes some
Is he a,
comments.
is he a little strange?
I'm not saying he's strange. We're all strange. Hang on.
No, but I mean, it's so good.
So what happened was I had this birthday celebration over here at the studio Friday, and this sister.
Oh shit, that's right. Yo, same birthday as Cassandra. That you met my girlfriend. Same day. I forgot that.
Is that
That's
right?
nuts. Yes,
Oh my god, are you
yes.
kidding?
Wow.
Where's she at? Is she?
She's in Florida. Yeah, I've been going back and forth to Florida. Yeah, I'm gonna.
Oh.
Yeah. Uh huh.
So this sister drove up from Texas, and this is actually a picture, and she works with photographs. Hey, Adrian, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Is he acting like?
Yeah, he's a fucking. You know what? He's getting on my fucking nerves. I've already had to block him like 6 or 7 times. I've asked you, Adrian, to come on this goddamn show, and if you want to come on this show and have a conversation, come on this show and have a conversation. But don't be making stupid fucking comments. All right.
Exactly.
All right, I'm gonna go in there and block this son of a bitch. I don't like these stupid motherfuckers. I don't really care.
You're so funny.
Yeah, these people are fucking stupid. Just
Or a little bit of mind control, maybe.
yeah, he's definitely under mind control. There ain't no doubt about that. Let me just find it.
Oh, we're actually. I didn't realize we're on the air right now. That makes sense.
Oh yeah.
I thought we were still on the pre-discussion.
No. By the way, we're on the air. We're on the air.
Thanks for letting me know. Right?
Yeah, I don't know. Which, these people are fucking stupid.
On the pre-discussion.
No. By the way, we're on the air.
Thanks.
Let me get this.
That was an echo going on there.
Let's see. Excuse my French, everybody. I just don't really have the tolerance that I used to have.
No, it's good. We need, especially
now
when
what,
there's so much light and dark competing.
You know what? This guy thinks he's in the fucking, Illuminati or some fucking force that's space force fighting against the Illuminati. You know what? I'll speak to you like that. Go fuck yourself. How about that?
I mean, if he was doing that, he should be supporting us, not acting like an idiot.
Yeah, he's just a fucking idiot. He's just a fucking idiot. And I've had to block him like 6 different accounts.
Oh
I have to go into the other page. Anyway, that's what these people do. They come in to disrupt. And in my opinion, they're God dang, we are
trolls. You get trolls.
Yeah, but
I used to get them all the time. And other videos I would make, even ones I upload myself on YouTube as well. And they start shadow banning a lot of my other videos and stuff too. So it kind of comes into territory.
Yeah, this guy's a fucking idiot.
You having issues blocking him, by the way?
Report comment. Submit. I just reported him to the CIA. but I think he works for the CIA actually.
I think that,
No, let me block him.
It's probably more like the NSA messing through him.
He's
Usually
possessed.
the typical ones that mess with me.
Okay, sorry about all that. Sorry about the hold up. He's now blocked. Hopefully he'll stay the hell out of here. Dang, sorry about
Hello,
this.
everybody. Yeah.
Sorry about this whole thing. Okay,
that's our nice introduction after you get the lighting issue.
Yeah, so this lady walks up to me, and this is the sister, and she, I think these are illuminized or something. I don't know. So she walks up to me, and she gives me this. It's kind of hard to see because of the light.
It's kind of like the I Am Presence reminds me of like this pictures like Saint Germain one's a little modified.
Well, when I saw it's actually a picture of the sun coming through the trees, It's got
Oh
these
wow, is
faces.
it? Okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was like a drawing. Well, that's amazing then.
but when I saw it, I just said that's Sacred Union. Here's a little card of it.
Yeah, that's amazing actually.
But
That's
anyway,
so similar to what you see.
But this
depicted.
is a reason that I bring it up is because there's been quite a bit of intel, quite a few people, and I'm saying a good number of people that have been talking the same thing. My brother over here is an esoteric astrologer, very very well versed in a lot of different disciplines. Then there's other people. There's just a number of people, and basically, if I'm just going to kind of generalize it. On or about the 22nd of November, we literally entered new territory where the projections of the bullshit was no longer playing. And by virtue of that and the deep dives that we've been going through, people are hitting or getting close to or something the sacred union frequency within themselves. And there's this kind of war between the sexes is over, and I'm speaking energetically, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The distortion between the masculine and feminine within ourselves and externally is over, and that those two energies within ourselves will start working with the golden child energy, Holy Spirit energy, third energy, whatever you want to call it, that which is created by the union of the masculine and the feminine within ourselves. So we've hit this point, and this which has brought us right up to today, when you know it, you're here. The 12th through the 21st, this corridor, people have been talking about, they've been receiving the information, the download, that this is going to be more intense than the rest of the year combined. But it's going to be, it's worth it, because on the other side of this, particularly on Christmas Day, or by Christmas Day, I'm just kind of paraphrasing all of these different ones, that we're going to be, it's going to be felt, and this comes from Morgan, her words on this part, it will be felt worldwide without a doubt. Now, we've heard about the solar flash year after year after year. We've heard all these different narratives. You know, I still stay open to the fuckeries running the whole thing, and we got to stay on our toes. You know, I still remember seeing a narrative or a download or whatever commentary a few years ago talking about, you know, what you see is not what you see, and come late 28, 29, the fuckery would show itself, and it's just like a big joke or something. I still believe that we create through our thoughts, and even if that was the plan, which you know it was, we still are more powerful than all things. So, but anyway, so that's kind of like where just kind of a summation, because I know how it is with you and me. I get these messages. They'll be like, "Can y'all slow down the way and the speed of talking?" And I'm like, no.
Yeah, I've got a few. I've seen those.
Some of those.
I'll try to behave a little more.
So what do you think about all that? Is there any?
Yeah, I mean,
are you getting any information? And
I mean, well, I guess we'll kind of pick and choose first, you know, the little layers to unpack there. When you mentioned about the solar flash, people talking about that, I've been saying for years too that's later. Like I was saying, you know, they always say post 2025, there's more of the energies coming in that we want. And that solar flash for me was more like 2029, 2030. That energy is the stronger ones, at least. I'm not saying we're going to have stuff going on, because the sun is always changing, always emitting energies. And I mean, since early 90s, I started doing like sun gazing and communicating with some of the solar beings. So for me, I was talking about solar mysticism back then, and saying how important the sun was, and the solar logos and the solar beings are to our evolution, how they've been having a hand throughout history. But of course, they've also had things trying to block their flow. Whenever you've had positive sun energy coming in through old cultures, you've had the black sun, you know, that were or the more like the negative energies from Set and Orion and other groups that were trying to flip the positive solar imagery, right, and making it more into a negative thing, like lower Leo versus positive Leo, right? So it's not about just us waiting for one like day, you know, for the event to come in, so to speak. You know, there's a lot of changes that are happening, but also for me, you know, I think I mentioned last time, in terms of positive disclosure versus like, you know, positive landings of timelines of good ETs coming down was more like that's been pushed back a few times, because there's been a lot of collective chaos going on and shifting of timelines and fighting over timelines. So the ones that they were showing me, this past year is more like 2028 in terms, or 2029 as being the time for positive landings. But again, there's a lot of work to do to get to that point. And so I think there's always windows of light coming in that give us an opportunity if we're able to calibrate to it. But I think some people take that window and start to extrapolate it as being a kind of generic evolution that's going to impact everybody in the planet at the same time. And right now, we're certainly not in that, because there's so many things going on that are trying to interfere with that, our ability to assimilate these new energies as they come in through the windows. So we have to be more diligent to really clean our space internally, externally, to be able to put the intention to remove all the interferences. Because, as I mentioned last time, I just see every day I'm working with clients, every client I work on has negative extraterrestrial imprints, templates in their field that started from new agreements that these ET groups have made with our governments at the beginning of this past year to step up their game, where they're really trying to colonize and like putting energy symbols like flags energetically on the earth, saying that we're now owning the earth. So we're saying, F you, no, you don't own us. We're not here to serve your fake timeline or your negative permutation. Right? We're here to ground our positive galactic lineages, universal sovereign lineages, optimal timelines. But it's really a fight right now between us really making that declaration clear. And I think the male-female part is really important to come together, because they've really done a lot of energetic blocking, not just in terms of us being able to properly calibrate that yin yang internally, but they're also doing it to the earth. So we're in the process of doing different group work to try to help Gaia and Geb, because there's been a lot of internal implanting of the earth through technology, by ETs and by government groups, different intel agencies, where they really try to, do a division game against the earth itself, to create blockages between ley lines to make it harder for people to actually tune in to the new energies.
Let me ask you a couple things, because
I know how I am. You have to press the pause button on me.
No, that's awesome. I love it. Okay, but you said a couple of things, and again, some of the things that you cover quickly, which we can totally get.
Yeah, we can unpack each layer.
But we're not as well versed in some of these things that you are. To you, it's just like the daily bread, right? So number one, I have like three things, and then just haul ass again. One, did you say, and if so, clarify, that some of these intrusions into our field are a direct result of our governments making choices on our behalf, or choices that affect us through some prior consent that we must have given? So that's number one. And number two, just two questions. Two, I'd love for you to touch on this at some point today. Do you feel that it's possible that some of the channelings and downloads that the people in these communities are receiving are affected and altered and projected as something that they are not? Okay, so those are the two questions. Okay. Government making decisions, and so on.
I mean, in terms of government making decisions, this is something that's not new, right? I mean, this started back during Eisenhower days. Plenty of people have done documentaries about early contact that our governments had with different types of extraterrestrials, since the beginning days, in terms of the beginning days, in terms of like modern history, at least, people talked about different groups like MJ12 or Majestic 12, like Bill Cooper years ago talked a lot about that when he first kind of broke the news around that. There have been different organizations, of course, that were formed to deal with the alien interaction scenario, right, and be able to have actual grounded contact with these groups. We've come so far since that point. This is where I think some people don't understand that that's like old news, right? That's like history, which is important to understand. I mean, we even had, what's his name? It came out last year. It was last year and a half ago. It came out in the mainstream news. There was he was he was a retired general in Israel. He was a former head of their space defense force. He talked about the U.S. and Israel working with extraterrestrials on Mars and the Moon, doing experimentations. We've been doing it for decades. If someone like that comes out and says it, and people still are like, "What?"
Well, that's like you wonder why they allowed that to be put out there, and with no pushback.
That's the thing, but because but look at the actual response rate. The response rate hasn't really changed anything fundamentally. People are still no one actually pushed for bigger hearings on that or have them come over here and explain and show more proof. It was just kind of like, them relying on the collective ADD nature of the media and people's attention span, with all the disaster, fear porn, that time of COVID scenarios and other things happening. It's all distractions to campaign. So they can throw stuff out there. It'll stick for a little while, but then it just kind of fades in the background if people don't really, put it in that center of attention anymore. but they also have to start releasing more information, because there's also been an in-house fighting of like how much to disclose by these different groups, because it's not like everyone is dark in these governments. You have white hats, so to speak, versus black hats, ones that want to help us be more evolved and not have technology manipulate us, versus the ones that are using it more for transhumanism and control agendas. So these factions, what we saw in the beginning of the year was that the major governments had made, they've updated their treaties with a lot of these negative ET groups, as well as from a parallel Earth that has more of like a negative timeline, to basically give them permission to rewrite our history more, so we're closer together with theirs. And I'm like, F you, none of us consented to that. But it's the same way, like, the government will have like different executive orders, or if we have a national emergency, certain constitutional rights are suspended and other things come up in play. We've technically been under, a loose form of that right since 9/11, since all the terrorism stuff was co-created, and that created the catalyst for the police state and Homeland Security and all the different surveillance state to get enhanced. So we've been slowly seeing that erosion of our rights. Of course, you see that going on with all the censorship campaigns and all the shame, virtue signaling that's going on the past few years. So these are all like subtle contracts that we have to say we don't consent to that. We want to revoke any of these deals that our government's made.
Here's the thing: so many of us have gone through different processes of releasing all oaths, vows, contract, et cetera. How in the fuck can any authority on the face of this earth make agreements out of fear, I would add, because why would they be making agreements with nefarious bullshit malevolent ETs?
Exactly.
And fuck y'all, by the way. But I love you. Don't get me wrong.
Exactly.
So I'm just like fed up with this. I see so many people scared talking about, I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of that. But I guess what I'm getting to is,
it's not going to get. Yeah, that's important too. You don't want to be in fear about this, because this can all be counteracted. That's important.
And you don't want to be pissed off and throwing F-bombs at them either. But the thing is, what I'm trying to
sometimes you got to express your will, though. Be a little more urban gangster about it.
I think they know me well, because I had a hell of a night last night. It was full of ETs, and that never happens to me. But what I'm saying,
the night before was a huge battle. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, how can they allow access to our personal fields, without telling us? Is it because we're still consenting that they are the authority and our parents? By paying taxes, by abiding by all the rules and regulations and laws. That's why we're still subjected to this, right?
That, I would say, that's like a base foundation of it. From that base foundation, they extrapolate many different types of social contracts, which they then, it's almost like fine print of a lawyer, where they'll add all these little subtext fine print that you don't really read. And if you agree to A, that means you agree to all these hidden terms. And it's like, same thing, we upload different programs in our computer. You're agreeing to all these little terms, cookies and adware and malware. You don't want to agree to that. But the similar idea, like it started even, especially during COVID, you saw that with all the lockdowns were going on and the quarantining of people and the stopping of travel, that was extrapolated on a higher level by some of these negative groups, where they were putting in other negative structures to try to interfere with energy flow between different locations on the earth, as a kind of, where they were using that one consent form as a way to do other things. So it's like, unless you call them out, they'll be like a snake oil salesman, and they'll keep trying to run further and further with that, just like a crappy credit card company that charges you, a lot of annual fees and monthly fees and all these, high interest rates. Unless you contest these things, they keep going on. And so part of the also problem is that they're being very sneaky in how they also try to insert other layers of it, like with the vaccination, with COVID. I mean, that's all nanotechnology and transhumanism agenda. So they really took a huge bite out of this contract by saying, okay, if everybody who gets this vaccination is now agreeing to be, part of our experimental genetic modified humanity group, so therefore you're not fully normally in a human, you're now like a hybrid from their eyes, and we're going to create another timeline to where we use that base population that has negative magnetic field particles that are spinning the wrong way, which I've seen on clients that work on who have that. It's like they're basically trying to make people into weavers of a negative tapestry that represents an alternate timeline. So it's not just like we're trying to revoke these contracts in space in our 3D, 4D, 5D reality. We need to revoke these contracts, and we do not consent to any negative group trying to build a bridge to a negative timeline through our own energy, through our own intention. And like, I can explain more about that, because that's really an important one, is that it's really a fight about time and using time either for advantage or against us. And they become very clever in how they try to manipulate our connection to time on a quantum level, and so we need to really be even more co-creative and with our declarations and to claim our freedom of motion,
But
not just in space but in time as well, so that we're not being blockaded with our option sets being so limited or being so narrow by the narrative we're hearing
right.
from the media.
But at
That's
the
all part of it too.
but at the human level, at the human conscious level, and I'm not even speaking in regard to people. I don't agree with those people aren't awake and all that. I'm just saying from a conscious human level. I don't understand how this won't continue until we refuse to participate 100%. I don't see how it just feels like if I'm paying taxes, if I'm following these rules and regulations, okay, these laws, these lawless laws, and if I just like at COVID, people started to question, why am I doing this? Why am I doing so? Is this happening for us at the soul level, where it's superseding all of this that's going on, or does it have more force and veracity? The frequencies, our actions at the human level, where we say, you know what, I am a soul. Fuck this. I'm done. I'm done with this. And if I have to go to a ship or to another incarnation, the only question there in my mind would be, do I have any karma left to work out? Because if I have karma to work out, most likely I'm going to come right back here, which is fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think it's about abandoning ship as it is more about us claiming the ground, and that we have to really get into the level of accessing those of the part of the starseed population that it's almost like being of service in ways that are relevant to your own path, right? If you're here to we're all here to shine love energy in different areas, different industries, and there are also those of us that are more of the warrior clan with that, right? That's where it's love energy, but it's also divine will, and that we also come from lineages on a galactic level where we were part of different alliances and part of different warrior groups on a galactic positive level that who fought against a lot of these negative groups in different wars throughout time and history. So it's for those people that understand or identify with that history as being part of their lineage. We're also here to kind of ground a higher it's like we have a higher authority sometimes on a higher level than we do on the grounded level, just because of our current ranks here, so to speak, may seem to be more behind the scenes. But on a higher galactic level, there's a lot of people that have been on councils, that have been participating in changing and affecting evolutionary rules on a bigger scale. So everybody needs to be able to really call in more of their galactic starseed positive selves and use that as a trajectory to give permission for our positive Pleiadian allies, Andromedan allies. There's a lot of different groups that are wanting to intervene more. So we're like the ground crew. So we need to be able to report these violations because they can see it, but they also need someone on this side of the chasm that separates our dimensions, like a drawbridge in a castle. We're kind of on the other side of the moat, and they're on the other side of the moat waiting for us to open the gate up. So we're the ones that are like the gatekeepers that need to open up the gate and be like, okay, we're inviting in these powerful, loving armies of love and light to come in here and bring in more divine justice and start to transmute and quarantine these negative actions that are going on, especially from the negative ET scenario, so that we can be in a more even a more even platform to have choice that's not under such duress and stress, and fear. So that's when we do, working with clients or doing group work, we'll have stuff where we're, trying to focus on specific areas of the earth, for example, where, there have been blockages to like Mother or Father Earth's grids, and there have been bases built there, and there have been technology put there that have tried to affect the masses because they understand that those sacred sites are a powerful entrance point right into the collective psyche. So we can call in help to transmute those energies that are there and bring more love into those major plexus points. That creates a stronger kind of chelation of love energy that could rush into the collective space and provide a more balanced forum, right, for people to understand, hey, it's not just the same old bullshit game over and over again that they're trying to convince us we're still stuck in. We're actually at the precipice of this huge transformational period, and that's why the stakes of the game from the dark perspective is so high, where they're really trying to have us subscribe to these fear porn alternative realities that we don't need to be subscribing to, with war and scarcity consciousness, resource scarcity, global warming. It's so much campaign to try to disempower us in our position where we really are. So it starts with really busting open that whole template to be like, no, I am a galactic universal sovereign citizen. Like, it's like being an embassy where you have your own team around you and you're outside the laws of that country. Because I have to keep doing that myself regularly, because when the negative groups try to come in, they're like, oh, we have permission by your governments to actually install these new energy pathways in your neighborhood and these cords into people's bodies. I'm saying, no, F you. We have no freaking permission to come in here in my area to do that shit. But this is how they're operating, literally, and they're trying to be like bullies about it. So we have to be like, no, we're not consenting. We're revoking that contract. We're like granddaddy law here. Gaia, Mother Earth doesn't want your crap anymore on the planet.
I see that. Yeah, I see that. That's where it has to go, right? Like, okay. So, like, with the question I had, so if you span from the human,
you sound really low now. All of a sudden, though. Sorry.
I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Making sure it's not just me. I didn't change anything.
Is it me? Hang on, because I messed up my microphone for a second.
You changed the headphones there a little bit.
No, I missed it. Is it low? Hang on, I'll fix it.
Is anybody else hearing him low, or is it just me? I don't know. Many people in the comment there.
Test. How's that? Better? How's that? Is that better?
Getting better.
Does that sound?
Say some more.
Does that sound like I'm closer, or is it on the?
Yeah.
Wrong? Oh, it does.
No, you're right now. That's fine.
You can
That's
hear
fine.
me. Okay, let me just move this.
People are saying very low too.
Well, that's weird. Okay. Let's see what.
Keep going for a minute.
Test. Hang on. Let me see what happens.
Yeah, a bit better. It's true.
Oh, wow, that's trippy. Wait a minute. Come on, man.
Just keep going for a minute. We'll see. I'll let you know.
No, it's my cord.
Yeah, a little echoey there.
Let me just shift gears here then. Hang on. This is Jesus. You keep talking. Let me work this out.
Yeah. So where are we at here?
Well, what I was saying is that it sounds like from. Can you hear me all right? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
so
see.
I'll fix it in a second after I ask the question.
Yeah. Sure.
So whether it's from the human aspect or all the way up to the soul or the oversoul, whatever you want to call it, it's the same declaration and claiming our sovereignty in terms of any and all parties. And it sounds like the governments, we spent all of our time breaking contracts and vows and oaths from, the people that we interact with in our lives, our antagonists and all that, but we haven't done it with the governments because they're not representing us.
Exactly. Especially these, behind the back doors, covert treaties and trade pacts that they've made with these various negative ET groups, whether through fear, coercion, or direct alliance, because, we're dealing with a complicated history, right, throughout the modern world decades, where you have different aspects of the military industrial complex. We have people in there who want to have the technology exchange that was going on earlier. You have this kind of exchange. What do we get in return for that technology? And you have other groups that are part of more like dark occultists who are worshiping and working with very negative, nefarious beings as part of their religion, and they're in these positions of power in some of these industries. So for them, they're more than happy to make deals with like Set from Orion, or with some of the Draco groups, or some of the negative like Nordic ETs working with Loki. So it gets into a more complicated territory of like who's actually being granted power of making these deals and accessing the technology. Space program aspects, you have that more than nefarious ideas, and if you couple that with already of a mentality of militaristic thinking, like with the NSA, where they want to, from where the NSA has been split for years, where you have certain people that are, really fighting to control humanity, and the other part want to help humanity. You have that tug of war going on in a lot of these factions, and that makes it more complicated because they're the ones that are representing us collectively, whether we want them or not at the moment. And we have to make that intention, say, no, you guys do not really represent us. We have not been properly debriefed about what has been happening. So this has been done all behind cloak and dagger shadow world campaigns that we are not consenting to. But, and we're here to reinforce, again, positive ascension, creating positive pathways for our galactic allies to come in. And so it's a bit of like half deconstruction where you're wanting to burn the old negative bridges down and replace it with positive pathways shamanically that lead to our loving galactic family, so they can come in stronger and be invited into all three worlds, underworld, middle world, upper world shamanically. Because sometimes we're like saying they'll be tricky and they'll be like, oh, well, you're consenting to it be on a quantum level, because now you're allowing 5G and other technologies that are active can be modified to transmit all sorts of other programs that we don't necessarily want. So we have to really be diligent and say, no, as part of the ascension, we're also claiming our power aligned with love in each force of nature, in the electromagnetic realm, in the gravity realm, and all the forces of nature that literally comprise our being, our physical form, where we have to, in a way, they're saying we need to kind of put more focus on using those forces of creation that are with us and putting in that intention of casting out any interference that has been trying to sequester people in those realms or input not good energy frequencies into those realms. So, in a way, it may sound like it's a lot of work, but it is. We're really in the thick of things at the moment, especially because these groups also take advantage of major holidays and major, alignments going on with the solstices and equinoxes. I mean, when we had the last eclipses during Halloween, it was pretty much like 3 Halloweens in a row. We had the eclipse in Scorpio, then we had Halloween, then we had the second eclipse that was right on the point where the sun is in the heart of Scorpio, which is the astrological Halloween. So we're seeing a lot of like dark underworld themes that are popping up that we had to kind of transmute. So same thing is happening now as we build up for the winter solstice. We need to be more impeccable and say, no, just because we go into the darkest day in the winter solstice does not mean that we're consenting to have negativity be manifest in such a stronger way, due to that holiday alignment. We want to have more of the positive Christ rebirth, Hanukkah energy, positive light of the sun shining into the depths of the underworld and create a positive rebirth during the solstice, because they are really building up a campaign right now for expanding the war in Ukraine, and they're really trying to create more fear timelines with the solstice energy. So we have to be conscious and say, no, we're not giving that consent right now ahead of time to try to preempt it.
Would you say that those people, those idiots that are making these decisions, are knowingly controlled? Like, have conversations. This is what you need to do. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're still a little bit low. Keep going. Say it again.
Yeah,
Let's see.
I got it turned all the way up.
Okay.
Seems
it sounded better than before, though.
Okay. So,
there you go.
All right. So, would you say that these people that are making decisions, we're talking generals, we're talking presidents, prime ministers, queens, would you say that they're having conscious conversations with those powers that are one way or another controlling their decisions?
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely. There's, I mean, in terms of, even looking at the topic of like the so-called Illuminati families and like the bloodlines that have been around, I've had different interactions with people that had connections to those organizations over the years. And, and also on a physical level as well as on a psychic level and research level. So there's been a lot with that. And, it's the same old game as it's been since the old time. It started in Atlantis. The Illuminati groups, original ones were negative ET bloodlines that tried to infiltrate, that did infiltrate portions of humanity back then. And they were trying to, build a negative bridge to be able to try to bypass that permission slip. Because then I was saying, okay, well, if a part of humanity has part of our negative ascendant bloodline in it, and that means that now we can actually govern them more because they've agreed to line up their morphic resonance with our collective consciousness space. So therefore, they're really, it's almost like trying to build the colony mentality or the imperialistic mentality whenever we go invade a country and take over the indigenous people. They were approaching in a similar manner. Let's put early seeds of our conquest into different time streams of humanity's early development. Then that gives us an inroad that they can try to use that as justification of why they should still be here, right? And so that's when we need to fight against this fake rulership idea, saying, no, we're not here to be governed by negative king queen energies or negative families. We want positive divine mother, positive divine father that has, the Christ Mary, Buddha, Kuan Yin, the positive ascendant, loving energy, right, as our parental figures. We don't want to give our power away to false, dark versions of of divinity. But that's what humanity's been doing all the time for so long, and with these governance systems and these power players behind the scenes, and these bloodlines. Like when I know there are 25 bloodlines that make up the real Illuminati, and they basically appoint 8 other groups to create a total number of 33. It's a little anecdotal detail, but they're all about numbers and symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
And and you have one of the big, several players in Italy that are part of that, including the real power behind the Vatican. That really is, again, you have the idea of the Roman Empire never died. It's like the same bloodlines of Caesar are still around, and they're actually at the top of the pyramid chain of these families that are governing a lot of events. So we need to say, no, we don't consent to any overt manipulated public leadership, and we don't consent to any behind the scenes, negative bloodline lineages controlling us anymore. So it's a lot of clearing house.
Would you say that these faces behind the faces we know, like the let's say the real power behind the Vatican, like those, would you say that they are actively utilizing ritual and such, and really making the decision and affecting this world ultimately by their free will, or that they're just literally following orders and doing what they're told to do?
I would say both. I would say both. It just depends on how high you're talking about. I mean, there was stuff years ago when we were doing some work against some people in the Vatican where they had access to they had 2 of the original crystal skulls that were from the Atlantean origin, and they were using that to also as a dark ritual amplification of their negative projections of the fake side of Christianity as opposed to real Christianity. But of course, they've hoarded the world's artifacts for centuries, right? So just in terms of the cult side of it, and you have factions, of course, that have worked with extraterrestrials as well. We've seen direct correlation between a negative ET group from the constellation Southern Cross. That was one I might have mentioned at the beginning of the year with you when I interviewed. They work with like the Beelzebub energy, that demonic archetype, as part of that kind of like dark fly, dark insect hive mind mentality. They're a humanoid group, but they work with that insectoid archetype to try to basically use the tree of death instead of the tree of life, right, as a way to kind of influence humanity and other planets. And they have a very close alliance with the Vatican. So like there have been actual bishops and cardinals who've met and have traveled back and forth to bases that the Southern Cross group has, some down in South America and also off-world as well. They've also had alliances with Dark Orion, Dark Set group, where they've gone on ships and met with representatives of those dark councils. So, we're way past the idea of just them, hanging out and doing trade. There's a very intricate relationship that they built up over time. And the same thing happens with some of our military bases in the U.S., where some of these negative groups are being hosted, or at least their technology is being hosted as part of the arrangement to try to, broadcast it out more. Like Buckley Air Force Base, I'll call them out because they've been a real pain in my ass for a lot of clients too out in Colorado. Buckley, there's a part of that facility is hosting that, what I talked about in our last show, that negative Joker clown ET humanoid group that works with that clown archetype and dark funhouse energies. They're hosting them over there, and they've been broadcasting a lot of like cords and implants and like negative mirror energies around like a lot of people I've worked on, and including myself when I first had interaction with them. So again, sometimes when you know precisely where it's coming from, you could be like, no, we don't consent to any negative technological, machinations, projections from here or here. You can do a blank statement, of course, first, but for me, I find it more effective if I know exactly the source of that projection and be like, no, we're not consenting to that. We're asking the angels and guides to intervene there, to remove that. We do not want any negative portals in our home connecting us to those facilities. We don't want any negative wormholes, no negative quantum entanglement with any of those systems. And we want the positive galactic bridges. And so, there'll be different groups that I work with from Andromeda, from Arcturus, that are the positive Norse beings. The real Asgardians are really from Arcturus. They want to help us a lot out as well to intervene. So it's knowing some of the players on both sides to me is more helpful, just to make the dialing on my telephone clearer.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. But here's the thing, and I know it's at the end of the day, from the human perspective, it's a war. It's literally a war on consciousness. It's literally a war to control your thoughts, or accept this belief system, accept this overlay, and whatever. But all we ever hear about is these countries that have agreements and relationships with nefarious ETs that can't be trusted. Mm-hmm. is it part of the universal protocol? Let's just say that the light follows, that they cannot intercede or involve themselves to the degree that these assholes do, and
Of
that they
course.
and let me just follow up with, real quick,
Sure.
and that their method, let's say the light forces method, is to interact with individuals versus these groups that don't even have our consent to make decisions for us.
I would say a little bit of both because I know that even early historians have mapped it out with Eisenhower, for example, him being approached by positive and negative ET groups. But usually, when the positive groups came, they didn't want to offer us technology off the bat. They wanted to offer us higher understanding, higher wisdom, higher teachings, and our military wasn't as interested in that as they were in the latter option of getting more weapons that could be militarized or tools or technology. So, and so part of the issue comes from just the paradigm of thinking of our leadership of what is important and what's not important from their perspective, and realizing that we need to that it has been like a little bit of a game between how much they're engaging us with the so-called free will to prime directive idea, like in Star Trek, which again definitely needs to be modified because we've been so far past that point of the negative groups trying to manipulate free will that we definitely need more intervention than ever, I think, to compensate for that gross, violations that I see on a regular basis, and of course, you have to be like a spiritual lawyer with it at times. And I think that's part of the process is that the positive ETs will come in and have their positive landings, but they are waiting for certain opportune times in which their message would not be distorted, in which certain things may be cleaned up more first, in which certain alchemical changes energetically in a planet are more stabilized, will make it easier for them to be more received by the collective instead of just being stones cast at
Well,
them, right?
it would make sense. It would make sense that they would literally, the approach would be to literally turn people one by one, like
And also
through.
because you have the same thing too going on where if people have been under such a delusion of like a limited narrative mindset that we have that start especially really started coming out for a long time since 9/11, but the fear with the fear and terror campaign, and again trying to externalize where they want to externalize the enemy, right, in a way that's where they are actually the enemy themselves, but they pretend they're not really it, right? It's this whole like turtle shell game where
Well,
they want to
yeah,
move
and
everything around.
this is where I look at someone like Elon Musk and go, what am I
Yes.
looking at here? I think
Yes.
for us to give our allegiance to anything other than ourself, that's really it. Make our own decisions at whatever levels we participate multifacetedly, through our multidimensionality or however we do it. Uh, I keep going back to all these ladies that, and men, but primarily ladies that we've talked about it, that have been doing this work for 20 years quietly, some type of grid work or whatever.
Yeah.
And that is that being undone every day? That has to be building some momentum. That has to be
Of course.
something.
And I say now more so than ever, but earlier we did see in the middle of COVID that there was a crashing, a lot of the positive grids had gotten crashed, and we had to do a lot of rebooting and a lot of damage control to repair it just because of the level that happened was really really messed up. And but it is a bit of a game. Like there's a positive hypercube grid that's also been forming around the Earth, like a positive 4D hypercube that acts as part of Gaia's ascension templating. The problem is that some negative T groups will try to reverse the geometries if people are aware. So it's always about us seeing where's the shadow and light reflection. Where are we strengthening our divine connection, or where are we giving power away to false reflection? So just because we see a geometry doesn't mean it's inherently positive, right? It's about the content, just like electricity. It's what are you using it for? And to communicate, heal, or to hurt or kill. So when I mentioned with our last show with you about the group from Series B, a Series A group was positive, a Series B group, they were kind of like the Romulans from Star Trek I
Yep.
mentioned, mixed with like
Yep.
Roman Empire, CI energy, but they work a lot with negative geometry. So like I still am seeing, once in a while people negative like tetrahedrons or negative octahedrons, any one of the platonic solids, they've used them as a way to corrupt our relationship to the elements, or try to distort people to be off of their compass of their true north, to try to point them in another direction that's off their path or more towards a negative timeline that they're trying to create. And that goes into what you're saying now, where it's about us making our conscious intention known both in space and time, as well as in time and space. And what I mean by that is that it's about us using time as a beautiful canvas to really paint our vision of the future, and like calling in our future selves, our future ascended selves, our positive ascended Earth that's transcended all the violation, all the drama, to really come in as a harbinger of to help be a guide, like a lighthouse, to shine to us, so that we can feel that energetic pull in a good way, and understand that horizon of the new sunrise that humanity is facing on their evolution is really here. And that because there's been a lot of corralling with these technologies, trying to corral people where they feel limited in time, or literally, like people I first were working on that had some of the vax, they had these look like black pipes in their system, or black geometries that were literally isolating them from connecting to their lineage, from their inheritances, from past lives. So we had to take down that system, and I work with different galactic beings and angels to help, also zap some of the nanobots and to reprogram like the nanoparticles, because these nanoparticles, they're not just in the vaccines, they've been in the chemtrails, they've been being spraying for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And since the Earth's magnetic field is shifting, it's also like they're very technical in how they try to co-opt each element. So they'll try to they'll try to pervert magnetism to try to make it so that our body is full of heavy metals or magnetic particles that have individual fields that are spinning in a way that's not congruent with where the Earth's magnetic field is spinning. And it's like trying to make us harder to make the transition, basically. That's all this stuff is about. It's all different levels of creating division and separation, where we're trying to go towards love and unity. And we need to be able to really reinforce that stance and be like, okay, and it's not, when I mentioned before also, that some of us are here to really deconstruct the system. Other people may not be here for that role. Other people may just need to be on their own and ground love and light and not deal with any of this crap. So when I speak that to people in an audience, let them understand, because sometimes there are blanket statements in people in the New Age movement that have also been kind of misconstrued, or overly generalizations that I think have done a bit of damage as well, where they try to just tell us, oh, just raise your frequency and ignore it all. Oh, just shift the timeline. And say, well, we're here to shift the collective timeline, not just our own personal egoic timeline. So it's like, it's like this lower, like started with The Secret book, where it becomes like narcissistic New Age stuff, where they only want to deal with their own self and not really help the collective. It's like both. We have to help ourselves, but also realizing we come into a different form of service, and understanding what that service is that eliminates your heart is going to be how we shine light in the dark. And that's important for all of us to do.
So I'm gonna. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, you can. Let me just make sure that I'm not going to blow the speaker. Test. I don't know what the heck's going on here.
You sound okay.
Yeah, I know, but it's not. Test. Wow, that's trippy. That's really trippy.
What is it?
I don't know. It's just like
you sound fine though. Volume sounds good.
Because I've turned the gain all the way up. I don't understand what's going on. But anyway, okay. So I'm going to read this. Just a part of this. This is from a sister. This is nothing against her. In fact, I shared it. I think it's something to consider. Ramona Lappin, she's pretty connected, and I got this off of. So shout out to Ramona Lappin, and also shout out to Michelle Walling, because she shared it on how to exit the matrix on her website. Okay, so I'm just going to go through this really quick, because it's got it kind of pulls in a lot of different things and puts them in one. And I just want to get your view. And again, this is nothing against, we're just here trying to learn. So it goes like this. The lower three-dimensional realities have now fully collapsed and have been rolled up, and we're focused on and finishing the clearing of the physical and 4D astral field, which is connected to our heart center and emotional body. Here we go. So also healing the split between genders, dimensions, realities, lower and upper body, earth and heaven, lower and higher self, all being done through divine love, It goes on here only when it talks about divine union, kind of like what I talked about at the beginning of the show. And again, this is fitting a lot of what I'm hearing and even feeling and even being told. I had a Navajo Anasazi elder. I got lost going to the Grand Canyon, don't ask me how, and I ended up in this place. Of course, you know why. So that night she comes into my lucid dreams, and she's talking. She's talking from Sirius A through certain planetary, it would be like Sirius A, I think it was Arcturus or Andromedan, to Arcturus, to just this whole thing, Pleiades.
Nice.
And then also the indigenous, the Hopi, the Navajo, Kachina, there were just a bunch of stuff. And she was telling me what I told you at the beginning, that that there's been enough work. In other words, she said the war of the sexes is over. That's the easiest way I can explain it to you, Todd. I'm like, okay, I got it, and I see that energetically. I just see that as all polarities or dualities, not
Sure.
polarities, but dualities. So, just reflecting on what Ramona wrote and Michelle shared, and just what little I, part of it to me, it feels right, but there's also this record player with a scratch on it that keeps saying the same fucking thing over and over and over. So I get it, and I know it's a very multifaceted kind of scenario, and that words, for instance, aren't just a singular thing. It's made up of many, many
Yeah.
parts of our multidimensionality. And I like the way you put it earlier, but and again, not taking anything away, but it just seems like there's a lot of carrot on the stick, and I'm just really
Yeah.
wanting to believe that a lot of the intel, including Franco, that 2023 breaks wide open, and we're moving at warp speed in these new energies, especially when the retrograde ends in late February. So I don't know. I'll throw that at you and see what you have to say.
I mean, we could definitely, pray for the optimal timeline, right? I mean, those are scenarios that are, I feel, are definitely part of our reality on a grander level. To what scale it's manifesting on a personal scale, I think is relative, right? So it's like you can have the opportunity, say, of the sunrise, where the sun shines on people, but how many people are choosing to open their windows versus closing their windows and doors and not looking at the sun, even though the sun rises every day? So is the sun not rising because people are closing their doors? No, it's still doing that. It's just that, but are people able to adapt to the energy coming in? Well, not if they're staying in their house, right? So it's the same thing. It's not just availability of the energy, it's accessibility to the energy. And so what a lot of the governments and these negative groups are doing, intelligence agencies, they've tried to manipulate our access to these new energies. So I would say that a lot of times channelers are talking about availability and aren't really distinguishing between accessibility, and making it sound like it's so easy just to tune into all these new energies, when it can be if you've done a lot of work on yourself, and especially if you're not living in a big city where there's so much toxic background noise energetically, physically going at you, right? But for me, I just see a lot of times, even when there's major solar flares or new energy coming in, that's usually when the dark groups try to turn up more of their fake veil technologies to try to block people from utilizing that new input. So this is where we need to kind of understand that, I've seen the same thing where certain people talk about, some of these ascension symptoms, and, half of these ascension symptoms people talk about on Facebook to me are just signs of, violation and energy warfare sometimes. So we have to distinguish between, okay, wait a minute, where are we sugarcoating?
I think
Where are
I
we
just
sugarcoating the process and trying to justify pain and distortion versus calling out the distortion and saying, no, get out of my life. You're not welcome anymore. We're here to bring the love energy, so I think male female balancing act is a personal thing to do with yourself, right? I think for me, I still see it's an issue because we're doing grid work on different points where you have mother, father, earth energies that have been compromised, and we've also seen stuff where different chakra points globally and different tree of life points globally have a lot of shit on it that needs to be cleared out. And as long as those things are still pushing in to the collective, it's like this has been going on for not just now, even old school days. For example, in China, with China has pyramids that are thousands of years old, and they're the old emperors of China, were very open about saying that they were descendant from the dragons, whether they're positive or negative. There's both sides there, and that they were used. There's been a lot of fighting over the pyramids at different points in history because they understand that if you control massive power objects that are built on major ley lines, you can affect the background of the population's minds and emotions and feelings and consciousness states. So that's why sometimes people feel stress and pain in their body when it's nothing to do with them. It's because that part of Gaia is being hacked right now, and it's creating a reverberation because we are all connected to Gaia. Right. And we need to be able to say, no, we're not giving permission for this violation on, say, this part of China to affect us here right now, and we want to call and help heal that situation. That's something we're going to actually be doing soon, because this just happened a few days ago, where 2 nights ago there was a lot of crazy negative ET attacks going on, and someone close to me were on the phone 2 nights ago. Literally, it was like a horror show going on, and we're like, what the F is going on here? And very painful attacks going on, myself and a few people, and we were tracking it back where some of the negative Nordics and the Joker group are taking advantage of an activity happening in China now, where there's a vortex in China that connects to the root chakra of the planet. There's not just one chakra point like we have in the old system. There's multiple fractal holographic evolution happening in Gaia's energy body. So some people are like, oh, it's only 7 points. No, there's a lot more things happening. So I didn't even know there was a root chakra point in China until I saw it the other day, and because we had to send light to help heal, because there was some dark feminine, dark witchy energies working with Set's group in Orion, and I don't even know the full extent because I didn't want to look yet, because it felt like a raping of time happening there, where they were trying to violate the root chakra, not just of space but of time, and create like spillage quantumly of negative things from the past to try to come up to the surface, like bringing bug energy. It was like literally energetic bugs were coming up and flying around that should not be around here. It's almost like digging up the ground and you have things that are not meant to be on the surface that are crawling up. So if that soil is like time, they were trying to make little quantum tunnels in time to create this disturbance. So a lot of light beings were coming in. We're calling in everybody to help heal that patch of land and be like, no, we don't consent to this opening of Pandora's box in the body of time and the root chakra sense. We want to have loving foundation, safe prosperity foundation, love energy in our foundation. But this is the kind of chess game that I deal with. We know other people deal with, that we're seeing, that we need to be more conscious maybe of creating more events around calling these things out and like, no, we don't consent to this ritual or technology raping of this part of the earth to try to mind control the masses anymore. This is not, but this is a level light workers have a hard time understanding, that these dark workers spend a lot of time really getting creative and trying to twist natural laws against us. And we have to be more vigilant and diligent to say, no, we're not, it's, I don't want to say, but some people try to misinterpret. It's like, oh, you're talking too much about darkness. No, we're trying to transmute the darkness, because how do you transmute or transcend it if you don't know it's there? It's like spiritual ostrich syndrome, I call it. A lot of New Age people have, where they don't want to look around anything going on negative because they're so, they have their own fear or their own stuff that if they deal with that duality, it almost like it'll shatter some people because they're so afraid of looking at it, or they're like so so it's like, no, you got to bring in your unity, your God self presence. You've dealt with this before in other centuries, you've dealt with this on other planets. We're at a unique situation, but it's also repetition here, and we're at a beautiful point of turning history in the good way. But they're not going down without us standing up for what we came to stand up for. And that's an important part of it. And doing the house cleaning personally and collectively is part of that. So like I said, so doing this type of work, we're sending light to different parts of the earth that are being messed with. It can only benefit us because now we're taking a custodial stewardship and accountability, both for ourselves and also for the earth, to be like, okay, guys, Arcturians, Pleiadians, Andromedans, go intersect this drama over there, because we're not consenting to this spillage, anymore, leakage across timelines that should not be here. Yeah. So again, it's about how much do you want to be involved in that sector, or just radiate love, or it's up to you. So I'm a little bit like a Paul Revere sometimes with this stuff, but yeah.
But I mean, I think the main thing to remember is, like, this is the type of grid work you do with the people that you do the work with, or your collaborators, and like we referenced, like the many ladies around the world that do it in their privacy and so on. But you're actually cleaning yourself up simultaneously when you're doing this. I think is what you're
sure. And it works both ways, in a sense that obviously it's helpful if people do enough personal work on themselves first, so that they're at a certain level of vibratory coherence to handle that type of role, of being a steward that way. And so when they jump into it, because that's always the contrast of doing, say, a public full moon versus, say, a more invitational only group event where we're really focusing on specific tasks. And I kind of invite people that I feel have the right energy signature for that, like that work together as a symphony or harmoniously. Because sometimes you have people, if it's their first time and they're like, what the hell is he talking about? Then I have to compensate for their gap and help raise them up. And that adds more work to what we're doing, right? So it can take longer, or we don't always get the fuller results if we don't have a compatible, clear, strong crew, So it's not about like discriminating. It's just about discernment of like, okay, who's really built for this job.
Of course. I'm just saying that there's a commonality there.
Yeah. I'm reading some comments too. I wanted to go into the Russia thing too, because we said we were going to talk about that too last time.
Talk about whatever you want to.
Yeah. Oh no, it's all good. But now we can go into like more of the what's the word? We can go to a lot of different areas, but I want to get into a little more of the meat so people get more understanding of the things we're facing.
We must be heading the right way, because my pineal gland is exploding right now with pressure.
Nice.
And Ukraine.
So
what's all that?
Was it?
You were going to talk about Russia?
Yeah. Both, yeah, exactly. So, a little backstory because it'll make sense to build a little context. And just in terms of understanding some of the players behind the scenes that are involved in some of the dramas that we're only getting part of the picture around, right? Again, which is again not important. It's important for us if you want to if you want to be influential in helping to add more transmutational energy to it, because half the stuff you see in the media, of course, is propaganda and BS. And, so
95% of it is.
yeah, I would say a lot higher percentage than that. Yeah, I'm being very generous there. The So there's an entity that people have probably heard about that's been talked about in many different religions called Baal. Baal.
Right.
He's like the old child sacrifice deity from Babylon, Samaria days, and all religions have mentioned his name before. So he's been connected to like the Babylonian like money system as well as child sacrifice stuff and war and money system energies in a negative way. So several years ago, a friend of mine that who was in Europe was working for a certain group. I don't want to go into details specifically, but this person had some meetings with some younger family members of some of these powerful families. Let's put it that way. All right. And so during her meeting with some of these powerful family members' kids, they all told her, now as a background, we were dealing with some group work where we were confronting some of these Baal energies and some of his, because he's not just one entity. He's really a leader of a negative extraterrestrial group, and they've had their own little fair share of manipulating things around different areas. And so we were dealing with some counter fighting against some like humans that were worshiping him and doing some dark coven stuff. And then this person contacts me and is like, "Oh, I actually just had a meeting, and these younger generation of these powerful families just told me that they all had meetings, they all had physical encounters with representatives of the Baal group who appeared to them, manifested in front of them, and wanted them to sign contracts to renew basically contracts that their family, older generations older Illuminati families had with Baal. Now it needed to be renewed because of the younger generations coming into play. And they all said no. They all basically told Baal to F off, which I thought was interesting, that the younger generation was like, no, we don't want your shit, right? So I was like, that's cool. But it stood out at that time. I'm like, well, Baal's going to be pissed off about that because he's so used to having alliances with these families. So I'm sure he's not going to take it lightly at some point. So I just kind of put that detail in the back. Then fast forward to the war in Ukraine. So I'm building a couple of pieces to put together a jigsaw puzzle. So when Russia first invaded Ukraine, the first thing that they went to was in Chernobyl, right? When they took over Chernobyl, I just felt right away there's something else going on in Chernobyl that we're not hearing about. They're not just going to hang out at this nuclear waste facility, toxic dumping zone, because they want to hang out there.
Yeah.
What was that?
Well, I mean, it is what it is, but what's beneath it? Well,
that's the point. So yeah. I felt that there was something being stored there that they wanted access to, right? So then I contacted another friend of mine who's a client who does some, she's ex-military, but works for Homeland Security, and she has a bunch of intel people in her whole community that are still active. So she messaged me when I asked her that question. I'm like, are your sources telling you anything about what's going on in Chernobyl? And she goes, well, funny enough, yeah. She goes, they're all telling me that there was evidence in files, a large amount of evidence in files being kept, because what's a good place to keep something you don't want people to find? Keep it in a radioactive scary zone, toxic zone. So they were using it as a storage unit for a lot of files and evidence against the deep state and Illuminati groups were being kept in Chernobyl. And Putin wanted his hands on that, not necessarily for humanitarian purposes, but for leveraging. And then, so that's like little note two. Point three.
Who would be storing that?
Who would be storing that?
I think who would be storing that would be the one that's pulling all the strings.
Yeah, good. Yeah. That's a good question. I'm not sure about that. I know there was a lot of deep state stuff going on with the biolabs in Ukraine, other things happening over there, and a lot of money laundering going on.
It's like the same template as Mossad, as Epstein. Just basically creating situation for leverage, and you're saying it's all being cataloged. It was the deep state catalog.
Yeah, pretty much. And now the problem is that point three, as part of one of the little special groups we're doing, we're working on accessing one of these Father Earth points, Father Geb in Egyptian. He's like the counterbalance to Mother Earth, Mother Gaia. And like I said, there was a lot of things where negative male energies were trying to pollute these positive Divine Father vortexes so that they could suppress the positive masculine and bring in more dark masculine energy. So it's even more important that we're doing some work on that as well, to try to give more of the divine hero and positive father king energy a chance to kick out the fake father energies that have been running amok. So anyway, so there was a point where we had access that was near Moscow. So we had a group, and everybody in the circle, I would say 90, at least 90% of people in the group were all people that had been my labs or involved in some secret space program stuff that are on the light side, that are getting their act together and pretty powerful. And so we were doing work to remote view that facility and also do some clearing work over there and retrieve energy, because this might get into a separate topic. I don't know if you want to open up that Pandora's box about like human cloning and what clones are being used for. But that's a whole other fun area, but it's a segue. Anyway, so we're doing stuff, and then we saw, wow, that it was a negative Nordic ET facility there, but on the other side of it. So basically, in Ukraine and Moscow, there was also two major facilities connected with Loki, or like the negative, like Nordic groups. So it's these negative ETs have facilities in places where they may be warring nations, but they're all in cahoots with the leaders. Mm-hmm. So the other base that was there near Moscow was Baal. It was the first time I saw a Baal base, and I'm like, wow. I hadn't seen this signature in a long time, and I was like, what is going on in this creepy base connected with the Baal group? And we saw some like nasty clone super soldier humanoid body that was created there in a laboratory, but they were literally feeding it energy. This is about a month and a half into the war, as context, I would say. And it was literally feeding off energy of people that are being killed in the conflict, and because Baal deals with war energy. So what we discovered when we were looking more, I was like, oh my God, so they were actually creating a body for Baal to walk into, because he wanted to be more present in our realm, but not forget who he is. So he wanted to have a special prepared body so he could start to challenge the elite more and get a bigger piece of the table, because he was pissed off from the from him.
That's funny. And here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. We all know, I mean, if you've done any research at all, and even common sense, we're talking, you just go back to World War II. Nazis post-World War II.
Yes.
Why the hell would there be a war, basically a ground war, and I know they're using drones and this, that, with the level of technology that is being hidden from us that could be utilized. This is a bunch of bullshit. It's a total fucking bullshit. And the sad thing is, and again, we have to rise above just strictly the singular human perception or perspective, is people die for it. These are movements of a master manipulating and moving slaves around. Not only the people that are on the front line, so to speak, but the people that are actually watching it and believing it. This is an enslaved consciousness that buys the bullshit. So I love this story about, digging beneath Chernobyl, and even going into the cloning, because, as everybody knows, my feelings, I am soul. There ain't nothing out there, even Mother Goddess, Father God, I merge with them often as an equal. I am made in the image.
Beautiful.
So I see the narratives and I see the plays and the movies that we've created. This one's obviously the most intense, just these divergent, convergent energies every day. It's like Groundhog Day for me. I feel like that because there's always
that's what they're trying to loop people.
And I feel this in my soul. I feel this in my soul's memories over the last few years, especially. I'm out there. It's the same polarity play, but the difference here is this duality. So when I look at this war on the ground, using the technology essentially of 50, 60 years ago, or whatever the case is. I mean, I know it's been refined a little bit, but still, we got tanks going down the street. Like, what the hell is that? You know what I mean? I mean, this doesn't make any sense. So I know that's a duality, a propaganda presentation, what's beneath it. And I guess where I'm going with this is, there has to be, I mean, this is the age of disclosure, the great unveiling, apocalypse, right? So these things are coming out one way or the other.
Yes.
When?
Well, and it's also calling it out as what, I mean, even on a basic small level, right? Starting to give her permission slips to call it out. Because what we also tracked with the Baal entity was that, that Russia had a contract with the Baal group from old days, and that not necessarily Putin was as thrilled with it, but he was still going along with it, and Baal needed more war energy, and he was giving him the access to the files, or told him about the files in Chernobyl as part of the leveraging game, because he wanted more of a seat at the table of their little end day scenario, their little dramas. So Baal is currently the walk-in body of Baal. He's gathering his followers in Turkey currently. So that's the update. He moved to Turkey, and all of a sudden Turkey became a stronger ally of Russia, right? And then Putin came out and was saying, a lot of the elites are going to there'll be a changing of the Western elites very soon. He came out in his speeches and talking about that, which is all tied into this in-house fighting. So there's in-house fighting as well as their desire to create this collective control, which, I don't mind in-house fighting, because if they start taking each other out, that'd be more pleasant too. If the House of Cards ends up making them fight against each other, as long as we don't become the fallout of that. But we have to pay attention, because the Baal group, and he's got a base in the biblical mountain in Turkey, the one where they supposedly found the remnants of Noah's Ark in Mount Ararat. Mount Ararat. There's a base there with Baal, so he's even trying to play the game of where the Nephilim or the fallen angels and old original negative Anunnaki and other ETs came down. He has a base there, so there's a lot of interesting leveraging behind the scenes with these little game players. Again, it could be like a soap opera. You don't want to get too attached to it, but it's being aware. Okay, we don't want Baal to try to create some World War III scenario because he wants to get fed more energy and get a bigger seat at the Dark Round Table. So it's calling them more light to say, no, we don't want the war in Ukraine to escalate to NATO. And there's been past few days they were trying to step up more of that drama, how it could escalate. So we want to say we're not feeding that time out of escalation, but it's important to understand what the dark are trying to escalate so that we can de-escalate it, right? And replace it with a positive energy, and say no, we're not trying to create more separation.
It's like holes in a dike, and you have to go keep plugging them, because it doesn't. There's always that yin yang. There's always that give and take, and again, the only difference here, which is quite a magnificent difference, depending on which way you're looking at it, is the fact that it's a duality. It's a distorted polarity. So everything is obviously not what it seems, but now it's almost like, okay, we're getting to the level of intelligence that we can look at something and go, that doesn't feel right. Something's not right. But I just wonder how many of those people, how many of us is there?
It's also playing out like culmination of larger karmic cycles that started in Atlantis. We have the same everybody's reincarnated from back then and more, and including these families and including these. Baal had one of the lineages along with the group from Cassiopeia that was part of a bloodline Atlantis. There was another bloodline that came together back then. That this is also part of something I've been working with certain groups of people that are reincarnated from back then. That's been kind of revealing itself. I'm not going to go too much into that, but there is a cyclical kind of process going on. And the Set group that's from Orion and the Apophis group, they were the other two bloodlines that came in really strong back then. Of course, reptilians and Series B had the little infiltration too, but some of these players think that they can try to reinstate stuff they had back then to reinstate it or continue it now, and say, no, we're not replaying Dark Atlantis 2.0. We want positive Atlantis, positive rebirth of technologies.
By the way,
because because there's a positive parallel reality, we call Nova Terra, where Atlantis didn't sink, and that represents part of our positive future because they already actualized it. So they're a good reference point. This is a side note. We understand that we're looking at not just history linearly, but also parallel concurrently. That there are good and negative influences that are also pushing into our current timeline, that we have to make a consensus choice. Okay, we want to go towards our optimal positive references, but we have to kick out these other ones that have really been building nasty bridges from dark timelines into people's bodies, parallel realities that were the opposite, and that's also part of a longer kind of story.
Well, let me just throw this in real quick. That lady, the Anasazi Navajo elder lady that came into my lucid dream, she I forgot to tell you this. She gave me, she said 11,621 years. Everything back, 622 years. Everything going back from that point had been brought to equilibrium. Now, she may have been talking about a specific group of people that maybe I work with, the stuff that they work on. I don't know, but it definitely included Atlantis and Lemuria and everything from there, everything forth.
I think you're afraid of. So she was saying there was a cycle that was every 622 years where things got.
No, it wasn't a cycle. Okay. She said everything has been cleared going back 11,622 years, which is, I looked it up, which is actually,
that was Atlantean times for sure.
That was the flood. That was the flood. It's actually, I saw Graham Hancock talk about it and another. But it was actually around 11,600 years ago when that flood occurred. And if you look at Franco's narrative, that's when the Anunnaki came to all of us and said, "Hey, why don't we just why don't we just distort the hell out of this thing and get the biggest bang for our buck? But obviously it was a bit of a misrepresentation.
Well, yeah, the Anunnaki are another interesting group, right? I mean, there's I've worked on several people that have been reincarnated from those lineages, both light and dark side of Anunnaki. It's also funny just to see because people don't understand is that all these groups, positive and negative ET groups, have people that are reincarnated in humanity, at this time as well, including like light workers that had a few dark lifetimes and excursions into those negative lineages so that they could hack it, understand it, build
That's
a bridge of resolution,
That's
revolution, and so we're people like that are carrying both sides within them,
Yeah.
and are our Trojan horses to accessing those systems, so it gets more complicated but also interesting as a kind of a storyline of how we can transcend things and heal by understanding that light workers have done some really deep splunking into the dark realms throughout history, and that they've in a way became martyrs at points to access some of those realms, and they're also here now too. We're also part of that team to use those opportunities as ways to transcend the webs of control. It's like I'm having a Trojan horse in the light that went into a very dark area. That's kind of more of a separate thing, but I mean, there's still a lot more time going on, a lot more time work because there's just a lot of intersecting technologies and groups trying to manage time or manipulate time. So we need to be more clear with our sovereignty and saying that we're extending our sovereignty to clear out all interference. We don't consent to any negative revision of our timelines. We don't consent to any negative quarantining or blockading of our right to access our gifts through time. It's like claiming your right to your inheritances, to your positive legacies and lineages, that you have that divine birthright. So we have to reclaim that idea that we don't consent to anything trying to create a blockade or damning that influence, because it's really about us creating continuity of love flowing in time so that can blossom into our new creation of the new age. Because so much of what they're also doing is trying to blockade people from each other, but also in time so that we're not fully present with the gifts we're supposed to be grounding. So that's why it's also like a chess game happening technologically, occult wise in time, where we need to become more allies with time again and become friends with time and understand that it's more fluidic and can be a beautiful canvas, that we can paint our vision on and heal the division, ultimately. So it's gets more involved. I mean, so there's so many stories, with stories all teaching us, themes that are replicated so we can choose alternative narratives, right? But if we don't understand that certain stories have had impact on our history, then they deliberately suppress those stories, then it's hard to understand how people are pulled into being subjects of those stories. Right? So it's like not letting like the mythologies or hidden history be used against us either. Like you said, Atlantis, they've tried so much to suppress Atlantis, and suppress our ancient history of Lemuria and Atlantis because they want people to be linked up to a negative Anunnaki, Babylon, Sumeria timeline as being our origin point, early civilization. And it's like, no, that's just alien propaganda being used by the families to try to like displace us.
And that's the way I see it, because even if you look at the Bible from Constantine's from 323. Now, I'm not saying that because I'm very connected, to the Essenes and to other things that contributed to that, and I think a lot of people don't realize some of the other influences from around the world, including the Asian Oriental influence in the Bible, if you really break it down, the etymology and so on. But my point is, I don't trust any of it. How do I know or not know that ascension, like I'm in a lab somewhere still and I'm being injected and the program is ascension. Now, I know as a soul that the universe always expands and I'm always expanding, so I try to keep that in mind. But for this particular trip, for this particular time that's been prophesized, something's going down. It's not going to be like, it's not. The one thing that won't continue is the pimple's got to burst. You know what I mean? The balloon's got to burst.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
It's going to be interesting. But let me ask you this too, because with all this talk, I know I've asked you before, we don't have to go in deep. With all this talk about Antarctica, of course, Mount Shasta, different places, you mentioned China, the magnitude, the size of inner Earth, what we might call inner Earth, is huge. And the representation there must be many, many species. And are they having, from a malevolent side or benevolent side, are they having the same type of interaction that these species from the stars are having? to your knowledge?
I've only had telepathic contact with some inner Earth people at different points, or I see more positive. Well, I see both. I've seen more like bases underground that have been used by positive ETs, for example, where they want to help, where they were connected to ancient civilizations or some of the survivors of old continents. But a lot of that has, to me, has shifted out. A lot of them kind of reincarnated more on the surface. So there are still groups underground, but for me, it's not anywhere as near what it used to be in terms of like that type of like demographic, I would say. And I'm not saying it's not there. It's just not part of my forte of connectivity with
I
them.
know that's. I know it's not. I just
Yeah,
wondered if you'd come
yeah.
across that.
I would see more like I scan more for technology and for bases on both sides underground, both government, military, ET, and we do work on that level. And also clients that worked on that were taken to different bases from their abduction programs and stuff like that. And or tracking technology is being used by different groups to identify more of the players and systems that we can disable them energetically, at least for ourselves, and then try to create a counter coding, like anti-malware to the malware. Um, but there's also, like I said, I mentioned before about the theme with Atlantis is important because those families that combined together back then, they also, I'm not going to go too much into it, but as a place a little seed marker for future maybe show to go more. The real Lord of the Rings stuff starts back then. What people don't realize that these families back in the day, they actually created certain rings of power that were made of alien metal combined with magical ritual and material from the earth. And think of like King Solomon's ring. What people don't realize is that there were ancient rings that were passed down through different cultures, and they were used by different secret societies as an extension of control mechanism. This is a whole other fun little storyline. Like, I really want to make some movies about this one day because we learned so much about this working with several people that are reincarnated from them, and hitting people now that still have access to those rings of power, and we're doing work to counteract some of that because there's a lot more influence that these characters had that they've created through these technological occult mechanisms of technology that's been passed down through time, in these certain organizations. But all that's coming to a head now as well. So I'm just saying that because there's a lot of intervention happening on multiple vectors that transcend what we're seeing, in the public eye, where there's been multiple scenarios of, disasters that that have been stopped by the light side. So even though we're talking so much about the dark groups in this discussion, that it's important to understand that I'm doing it because we need to illuminate what's happening so we can get out of their narrative, and expose them and transmute them. But we need also bring in a lot more spotlight of the good things that are happening, and and which we need to magnify, of course, and not just rest on our past successes, because there's a lot more work to do with that. There's another group I want. There's there's different positive players too. Like another group that's like a positive lion, jaguar, humanoid group. I feel like they just wanted to be represented briefly to call them in. That they're from the constellation of Ursa Minor, the Little Dipper, and they're called Illyrione, and they're part of like the original Sekhmet kind of Tefnut Egyptian energies, and they're really beautiful, positive, like solar feline, multidimensional race of humanoid beings, and they want to come in more to help out too, especially because they were here during Egypt and had anchor points, So
let me just throw this in real quick and keep going, but because I don't want people to miss it, but I think with everything you just told us, like some of the history of Atlantis, and even right up to this last comment about Egypt, I've never been one to really attach to the past life memories. They'll come in as a scene or whatever the case is, or an activation, whatever it might be. But I think what I heard you say is it's important for us to connect to these things because it I guess kind of shores us up. Because otherwise, the only thing we're going to look at is going to be what we were being given, which we know is not true. Like you said, we're either going to adopt what we're told, or we're going to go within and seek, and the door will be open, right? I mean, that always works. To go in there and reclaim these memories is. I mean, you said a lot there, but to me, that's so important. As I said,
I mean, that comes up at most of my clients too, where if there's karmic things that need to be cleared out, or patterns that are still replicated because they were started in a past life from trauma points. Healing those trauma points is important for us to transcend why we might have created repetition of more similar situations in this lifetime. So it's about understanding, taking the forgiveness and healing, and and like distilling those core lessons and values and skill sets and soul gifts so that they're available to us again, and then we don't have to create the same drama over again because we're ignoring that original input point where we had experienced it. So that happens on a collective level too, where we keep repeating patterns on a collective level because humanity has been kept in ignorance about their history, so they can keep putting on hoodwinking humanity again and again because they've created this revision and division. And if they understand that we are so much more powerful with our positive, we understand that there's been, active alien intervention and interference in both ways in history, then it's not so hard to understand what's going on now. This is an old game that's been going on since the beginning. It's just become more suave and more sophisticated because now we're all the collective level that was, similar, echoing to Atlantis. So that's even more, and because also some of the dark groups try to use history against us, where they'll create negative bridges in time to try to bring up old wounds so that they are more easily able to affect us again. So it's important when doing this time work that we only want to bring the positive energies from our past lives and other timelines. We don't consent to any negative bridges in time, to any negative periods where we might have been on the dark side or trauma. We only want the good gifts to come to us like a filter with the angels, with the intention you set, and that kind of work. Because that's something we've been seeing too with some of the negative ETs. We're trying to attack some people, including myself and people I knew, were trying to make these negative bridges. And we're saying, no, wait a minute, we're not. You can't try to distort our cyclical connection of time periods against us. We're trying to create continuity of love in time, which means it's helpful to remember where we had experienced love before, so it builds on further upon itself, like a springboard, like a catapult. If you have a spring and you compress the spring, then you can have the nice leaping forward. But if you're not even having any remembrances of the spring, which is like the spiral of time, then it's harder to kind of build the zest or momentum you want. But if you have that beneath you, you have that behind your back pushing you forward, it's easier to kind of go forward. That makes sense.
It does. It always makes sense. Yeah, I'd like to get him to come on like once a month. Somebody said, "Can you have him come back more often?" Test. I have no idea what's going on with my mic. Test.
It sounds fine to me.
So, one of the things that baffles me, I told you before, I'm an old history buff, and I always found it fascinating in the stories when the people would have enough of the bullshit and overthrow the monarchy and sever heads and legs and limbs. And they didn't play. But obviously, I'm sure they were being manipulated at a higher level. Who knows? But I'm fascinated that that's not occurring now. And the only thing I go to my head and I say, okay, well, wait a minute. Well, it must be compassion, which means no judgment, kind of a trajectory of no judgment from the human perspective that has some kind of massive calibration effect on our multidimensionality. And then I just kind of sum it up like this. Are we anywhere that victim consciousness supersedes compassion, we're basically fucked, and that's where we've been. and what that really means is every time, even me, even you, even the people here, anytime we're passing a judgment, that from an energetic standpoint, that's kind of keeping us where we were. That's the way I see it. Now, I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying.
Sure.
I
think it's a fine line between sometimes discernment versus judgment and not mixing the two up, and like calling something out for what it is versus saying that that's a judgment call. If someone is doing A, B, and C, and you just state it like a journalism, it's like, well, this person's. Then that's different than like being overly, because I've seen that too, where I had to go through that early on when there were points where I was overly self-righteous at times towards like fighting the dark in a way that but then when I looked at some of my past lives where I discovered some of my dark past lives that I had, it helped me to heal that reference point and be like, okay, we're actually, and that helps us build empathy towards understanding what made those people choose that path to begin with, so then we can help transcend that game with that love energy. Yeah.
To me, the difference between discernment and judgment is really simple. If I make a statement, am I creating a field of superiority, inferiority? You know what I mean? Like, am I creating a hierarchical? Am I saying I'm better than you? Oh, look at those people, they're stupid, or most of humanity is this or that, right?
Sure.
And then discernment, I think, is the way you explained it is very much like that. It's like a kid. Childlike wonder.
Yeah.
It's like a kid doesn't have a filter and says, hey, I'm looking at a big, black, ugly monster. And that's what it is. It's a
Yeah.
big black ugly monster that stinks and needs to take a bath or whatever the case is, right? And that's what you're doing. You're saying, hey, these assholes over here are doing this because they're going unchecked. And I think this is where you really come through when you say it's not about I'm being negative or being, because we've had many discussions.
Yeah.
It's not about I'm bringing the dark in. It's about pointing it out so that we can transmute it,
Stop them.
equal, whatever you want to call it, so we can move on. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of being stuck here and where our
And pretending that
judgment.
we're somewhere else other than where we are. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
because this victim consciousness thing, yes, exactly. Because this victim consciousness thing is look. I went to where did I go today? I went to auto parts store, and I went to CV pharmacy. Both of them, when I went, they're asking me to make a donation as you're checking out with your card. You know, to say, "Would you like to make a
Mhm.
donation of 135?" And I'm thinking, you fuckers, you know, because that's the same thing. It's a victim consciousness,
Yeah. Yeah.
or at the end of the day, it's compliance. It's just another very subtle thing that you're seeing in every service station now, every grocery store. And what is that? You know, and and it
Oh,
just
I
shows you
mean,
how far it
you
goes.
definitely see. Yeah, I think the last word you said was important with like the compliance and victimization, scarcity. It all kind of goes together, right? Where
Yeah.
where they're you see that in the distorted movements all the time, especially with the elites, and the global warming campaign of like, trying to solve it without really solving it, where they only offer fake solutions when they want to. They also distort what's happening on a global level to make it look like it's all only a victimized situation, and they try to pass the blame on each person instead of being like, no, these are corporations that have and militaries and groups that are deliberately suppressing real technology that could free us all. And I have other friends that are working on stuff too, and hopefully they'll be able to get it out at some point. Other good technologies, free energy stuff, alternative propulsion, generator stuff that is so many people have made that over time that's been suppressed. And this is part of what we're saying. We need to get the real technology out that actually can burst the bubble of some of these narratives of control that have been trying to, in a way, limit people as well as create this like distortion of what's really happening. It's like, of course, pollution is bad. Of course, we don't want to, hurt the earth that way. But but there's a lot more complicated things happening with the earth than just their linear global
Oh yeah.
warming narrative. There's
Yeah.
the magnetic field that's essentially is so important. Has been slipping. Is changing a lot. The local gas cloud that our solar system has been going through since the 90s, especially, is affecting every planet. There's increased energy coming in from the galactic center. There's Gaia's has a plasma core that's erupting into greater kind of quantum leap states and are trying to get more into heart space, and they've been trying to manipulate all different layers of this natural shift, and then they try to just spin it as saying, oh, it's all just only about this, and this is our only one solution, which is a fake one to begin with.
Mm.
So that's part of
Yeah.
bursting their bubble and saying, wait a minute, we're with this carbon credit points, like, we're not the
Like, why
carbon you
would
want
you?
to,
Why would you choose the person to solve the problem that created it in the first place? One thing I have noticed too. I'm gonna have to get out of here. We got another. I really enjoyed this hour and a half. I think we should always talk at least an hour and a half.
right?
But
Yeah.
one of the things. So I've been to Sedona 11 times. Right. This time, most of except for about 4 or 5 weeks, I've been here since the 1st of July. So over that time, over the 4 or 5 years, I've seen chemtrails. Like you see anywhere.
Yes.
They come and go. But I noticed that around the 22nd of November, dude, they were flooding it. I mean, it was just crazy. Like an entire clear sky. I would look up at the sky at night, and I'd be able to see. I counted one night 37 different streams as the planes. So this kept going on and on and on, pretty much every single day. Like, and I would tap in. It's like, there's a lot going on here, but the main thing is they don't want, or they're put there to impede the code to come in to us, right? Or the light code, or whatever you want to call it. And
Yeah.
then I noticed actually Friday on my birthday, your girlfriend's birthday, it was clear as a bell, right?
Oh, nice.
So I don't know if you have any beat on that at all. I mean, are these? I know the chemtrails have many functions, but is one of those functions, if not the primary function, to create a film or blockage of the light codes? And
Yeah. I mean, there was one line many years ago that a friend of hers who was in CIA told her very straightforward when he asked about chemtrails. He said to her, "The main function of chemtrails is to negatively affect the genetic structure of humanity. through negatively affecting their genetic structure, basically. So it's trying to interfere with our evolution by manipulating our genetics, and that's so with the substances, heavy metals, nanotechnologies, different things they're putting in the chemtrails is designed to weigh us down,
See,
basically. So the whole war is it's been a war against our ascension from
man,
day one, honestly.
see, this information is pissing me off, and I've been pissed off a long time. But I think about this, and
Yeah, 100%.
people talking about Trump, and people talking about, well, the red or the blue or whatever sides there are. But if I'm to understand, and I believe you 100%, and I actually did before you said it, every one of these people, not only every one of these people knows about it. So either they're totally defenseless and they can't do anything, which is a chicken shit way to live,
Right?
or you know what I mean? Like, when is somebody in that? Because now that, look, for as far as I'm concerned, Trump, White Hat's Q, that's all out the fucking window. Because how could you continue to be a part of an institution or a string of institutions, a neighborhood of institutions that's advocating this? You're going to tell me that you have no control? Well, you have a microphone. Pick up the microphone and tell the people what's going on. None of this is done.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I'm wondering when I watched Kyrie Irving give a little video about 2 weeks ago. It was phenomenal. He used the word starseeds. He
Oh, wow.
talked this language, 31-year-old guy who's being, obviously being targeted. But, when are we going to see that?
Yeah.
All this bullshit. Oh, Prince Harry, he's going to go against the monarchy and expose shit. He's over here.
No.
like
Yeah,
every
they're
other
the worst over
capitalist.
there. Are you kidding
You know
me?
what I mean? So,
Some of the Antichrist line is connected to some of those people in that royal family there. That's a whole other dark subject
no
there.
doubt.
But no, and I mean, and also with like you said about the suppression. I mean, there are white hats, but the problem is that there's a lot. From what I've seen on different levels, let's put it that way. There's a lot more white hats actually in the Marines, and there are groups in there that are trying to do stuff on the light side against some of the other infiltrated military that's been corrupted by the dark groups. But it's a tough situation. So I hope hopefully some of these white hats that are in the Marines will step up more and actually do some more public stuff.
Here's a good comment from my friend Ariana. She says, so why are those chemtrails not shut down? Are average humans truly choosing? Now, here's my point about her comment. So, and I believe this, we have a vote on everything that happens. Franco would talk about this. Like we hadn't decided 10 days before the election we're going to take the red trail or the blue trail, and here's what's going to happen. We end up in the same place. Now, whatever it is, but either we have no say so, or we haven't realized that we do. Like, if you had enough people go, you know what? I'm sick of talking about what they are trying to do with these chemtrails. How about we just say this? We don't agree to that anymore. They are not in our experience. They are not in our universe. It's going to be. I have a feeling we're going to be laughing.
That's the same thing I mentioned before about the negative ETs thing. We don't consent to these negative alliances or deals that our government's made. We want to have positive agreements with our galactic love lineages because they want to be here to build the positive embassies and teaching institutions, healing institutions. The future light cities, future star cities that are part of our future lineage. Wants to come in, and it's like we don't want to be part of this negative galactic network. We're going to be part of a positive galactic network. That's Earth's real future, and they're just trying their best to delay the tactics and delay humanity from stepping into that current.
They're going to get their ass kicked. They're going to get that. Well, they probably won't.
Obviously, long term, I have no worry about this. This is short term dramas that we have to push through, and they're important for our learning and alchemical completion. To be able to call this shit out.
That's true. Well, and here's the thing. They're probably turning it up. They're probably turning up the heat because they know that we're going to be evolving from the heart. We're going to have compassion, and they're going to get the lightest sentence they could get. But I don't think the universe plays with this stuff. I think when you're encroaching upon the space of a soul uninvited, with that type of ulterior motive, self-serving, whatever, you're going to get slapped. Bitch slapped.
Eventually, but they've also been so used to like kind of getting their way for a long time because of various factors, and so it's kind of like even more reason why I said we need to have the divine justice councils and higher universal councils really like weigh up more about further increasing or speeding up the timetable of certain interventions for a highest good to be able to counteract some of these negative timelines. But again, it starts with us. More people are aware that we have the right to vote against it and choose an alternate one that helps provide more space for leveraging like an attorney, presenting its case to the judge for more intervention to occur in a more timely manner. So it's kind of it's a bit of a juggling act, and
well,
it's a
listen.
lot.
Do you want to get together in 30 days at the same time on 1/11, January?
Oh, nice 1/11.
Yeah, I just saw that. So.
Yeah, that sounds good.
You want me to just
We
put it
can
on
go
the
more. There's always a ton of material to cover that we
I know. And here we were signing off 10 minutes ago, and it jumped up 25 people. We're up at 170 people. Well, listen, I've got to run.
Someone said you're frozen. Achieve. Oh, that's okay. Sorry, no. I thought they were.
That's probably on there.
I misread the comment. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're frozen. You two are on fire tonight. Yeah. So because I got 2 more shows. We got Victoria Lillenquist, from Sedona here, who gets visited by ships every night. She showed me a video Friday at the celebration here, and it was pretty wild. Not to mention some things that she talked about. This is very recent intel, so it'd be interesting to talk to her. And then we have Honey Nguyen from Australia coming tonight, who's a really, really impressive sister who does some really good work. But yeah, I'll put you on the calendar.
And also in between doing the winter solstice to be the next group, a Zoom thing I do, and I'll end up posting that link on your wall. Maybe if people want to join for that too.
Absolutely. So it's going to be the 21st or 22nd?
On 12/21, yeah.
12/21. Oh yeah, that's the.
I'll be doing it from Florida at that point. But I'll be going to Florida. Yeah. Man, awesome.
I'm about to hit the road here Tuesday, and I don't know where I'm going, but I know I'm going south and as warm as I can get. What part of Florida?
If you ended up Florida by later in the month, let me know.
What part of Florida are you in down there?
I'm going to be in Orlando area.
Okay.
And but then a few days we're hopefully going to get down to the Fort Lauderdale area.
That Orlando area
manifest some more stuff in that area.
I guess you know this already. That Orlando area is really dense, man.
Oh my God, I do so much work over there, dude.
It's one of the densest swamps I've run into in my travels.
Wow. It's like the Joker group is so strong over there. It's ridiculous. You have to do transmuting. I mean, she's about half an hour from there, but that's like the landing point.
Where's she? I lived there 4 times. What?
Oh, okay. Up near Claremont area, a little just around that area. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got
it's But there's some scary shit going on in that area too.
Hey man, Florida.
Negative Nordic ET has a base over there in Claremont, by a lake there.
About,
it's creepy as fuck.
What's the one in Tampa? Something.
Oh yeah, the big military base. Fort McDill is doing a lot of things over there. Dude, Central Command, Special Forces Command, PSYOPs Command. There's a lot underground area there too. It's a whole other.
Yeah, Florida's got some really dense stuff happening. That's the only reason.
That's why I love the coast more. Like Sarasota down in Naples. Naples are beautiful. Yeah. Vortex is there. Yeah, I haven't been on the East Coast. I mean, I haven't been for a lot in so many years, so it'll be nice just to kind of nice. I definitely want to do some more, spending time down there, maybe more so than in New York. So that's something to investigate.
You might be going down there permanently if you make her an honest woman.
This is part of the story. Yeah, Ashmi. Right, talk for another time.
All right, brother. I love you.
All right, yeah, so where are you going to be at in Florida? Let me know.
I don't know
when you end up there. Who knows? If you're driving down, give me a buzz.
Yeah. Well, I am headed. I was told to leave on the 13th. Where I'm going, I'm not sure.
Well, I'll be there from the 20th, probably for like 2 weeks. So.
Okay. Who knows? I might even end up in New York City. Who knows?
Right, and do that all the way back. Right.
It just depends on what they tell me to do. I don't know. But I do know I'm going to be going into the deserts of Arizona and New Mexico. So I don't know what that's about. But I could get picked up. I might be gone. But all right, brother. I'll see you. Thanks. Hey, listen, thanks for what you do for humanity too, because it's very important.
Likewise, brother. You kidding me? Oh my God. Well, that's it. We all just do our thing, and we'd be a lot better place. Everybody just did their thing. They finally came to do.
There you go. Take care, Steven.